introducing Ganesh, CEO and co-founder at Anzenna. How are you, man?
I'm doing great, thank you. It's wonderful to be here and wonderful to see all the people at BlackHat. So it's been awesome.
How's the conference been so far?
The conference has been amazing. Got to meet a lot of customers, potential customers, people, and it's been really exciting to see different folks that I'd worked with even in the past. So.
Yeah, face to face, you just can't beat, can you? Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, Ganesh, with all of my guests, I like to take it right back to where it all began and how you got into security.
Yeah, so I've been in security for a long time. So it's been close to 25 plus years. I basically started out after my master's in computer science at Intel Labs in Oregon, writing device drivers for IPsec, which is the legacy VPN these days technology for Microsoft Windows environments at Intel. And so that's how I started as like a security developer. And then a few years into that, I actually was fortunate to move to the San Francisco Bay Area to work at a company called Securify, which was founded by Tahir El-Gamal, who was behind the digital signature algorithm and SSL at Netscape. So got to work with a lot of visionaries and a lot of great security people there. From there, joined Yahoo as one of their really early security engineers when people didn't really know what security meant. And people were just trying to figure it out. This was like 2000, 2001, .com bust, if anyone is old enough to remember that these days, with the market trying to go down. Talk about NASDAQ going down from 5,000 to 1,500 in a matter of 6 months. And so that was different times. So started there, and then spent 9 years and change at Yahoo, was CISO at Yahoo when I left. And then went to work at LinkedIn again as an early. So my passion is really building early companies, early security teams from scratch. So that's what I did at LinkedIn. And then went at Atlassian after five plus years at LinkedIn. And then I felt like, hey, I've been doing the CISO thing forever. And if I do this for longer, I'd probably go native. So I just wanted to shake things up a bit. Still extremely passionate about security. So ended up starting a cybersecurity company instead, in the public cloud security space, which was acquired in a few years by Sophos. And then spent 3 years at Sophos, and then started Anzenna in 2022. So that's a brief background. And the thing about starting another company was, when I was a practitioner, we spent a lot of time protecting the outside in. And that's really still tends to be the focus for most people, right? But a lot of the problems we saw were inside out. This classic notion of crunchy outside and squishy inside in cybersecurity. So the goal with Anzenna was like, how do we make the inside much more robust, more less squishy, if you will. And so here we are.
Yeah, amazing. You made that sound like it was a 5-minute career, but over 25 years. Yeah, wow, impressive. Loads to pick at. First of all, you mentioned right at the start about being surrounded by like security visionaries. How important has that been for you?
It's been, life-changing, if you will. And security visionaries actually come in many different ways, right? And they've hit me. I continue to meet what I would call visionaries. And, of course, I mentioned Tahir and the people I worked with at Securify. That was really the beginning. And then a lot of those people continued on. I got a chance to work with them again. I got a chance to build security teams. And so I met visionaries in the sense that, people who were in my team were coming up with these brilliant ideas of how to solve problems. The people I worked with is kind of how I look at it, right? So it's been visionaries all around. When I look back at where cybersecurity was 25, 30 years ago and where it is now, oh my God, it's night and day. And you can say that about breaches, but you can also say that about how far we've come. This is an industry that doesn't tend to celebrate. It's like cops, right? When something goes wrong, people get blamed, right? But then how much work goes into keeping things safe day in and day out never gets talked about. So in that sense, I've been super fortunate to work with visionaries all my life and see the industry advance. I mean, we've come a long way, and we should pause for a minute and actually celebrate that.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned some big logos that you worked at, Yahoo, LinkedIn. How has being an operator as a CISO, particularly like at LinkedIn, how has that helped when you've decided to then found your first company? How did that help? And then obviously as well with Anzenna, but how has that helped being an actual operator?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing about starting companies is to empathize with your customers and understand what they actually need. And, so that having that background helps me. And when they bring problems to us and say, oh, this isn't working, that isn't working, and it's easier for me to put myself in their shoes, which is really the most important thing about starting a company.
Yeah.
Right? So that's key.
Yeah. How was the feeling of the acquisition when it happened in the first company?
I mean, acquisition is always a great thing. I was, to be honest, skeptical about a small startup being acquired by a 35-plus-year-old cybersecurity company, Sophos. But when I went in there, I was pleasantly surprised. Again, about to your point about people and visionaries. Got to work with a lot of great people at Sophos, which I wasn't expecting going in. But I think that was a pleasant surprise. So it wasn't just that we got acquired, but like what happened post that was also really nice.
Yeah. So when did the inspiration to start the second startup happen? When did that all come around? Yeah.
So what happens is when you start a company, you get used to sort of you experience this different way of looking at things. And, I was always, like I mentioned, I always built teams from scratch. So I'd never tried to join like companies that are already really large and pre-established teams. And so when there was a choice, okay, what do I do now? It was like, hey, this is something I, would love to do again and want to do. I love to do this, right? Because it's starting from nothing.
Yeah.
Building something from nothing is that this amazing feeling that you only get when you do it.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't ask for more. Like I keep craving that. So
yeah, I can still feel the energy that you've got about to start again. So tell us a little bit more about Anzenna then.
So we are, like I mentioned, we are in the broader insider risk space. If you look at the broader security breach data and security risk in general, 68% per the latest Verizon DBIR data, 68% of security breaches happen due to insiders. And primarily, not just that, insiders are bad, because when you say insider risk, people immediately think about bad employees. But 95% of that is really about people making accidental mistakes. And what attackers crave on this. And this is what they want. Like they want, because insiders, people are the easiest way in. So attackers try to compromise insiders, get them to make the mistakes, and so that they can get a foothold into your environment, right? That's what insider risk means. And that's actually 68% of security risk.
Yeah.
And when you look at the security investment, we all, like I mentioned, we all tend to focus on the 32%, not the 68%. So what we are solving is creating a source of truth for insider risk. So Anzenna is the source of truth system for people's security data.
Mm-hmm.
So we pull data, security data, about people, associated with people across a number of different systems within a given enterprise.
Yeah.
And as we all know, those are extremely fragmented. So our strength is pulling fragmented data and unifying them, normalizing them, so that then we can help organizations, security teams, understand one,
mm-hmm.
what is their insider security risk. That's the basic. Like without knowing that, people can't act, right? And so that's the first thing. The second thing is we see a lot is security teams, and I experience the same thing, right? Which is security teams have trouble justifying controls, especially when it comes to people. Oh, you're going to stop my productivity, or you're going to block this. So when we create a source of truth saying, hey, this is what's going on from an insider risk perspective in your enterprise, it's a data-driven discussion, right? Hey, we want to do application whitelisting because we see 75% of our employees downloading potentially malicious apps, and that's going to that's a breach waiting to happen.
Yeah.
Very easy discussion to go to the business and say, hey, we need this control in place. So the source of truth enables that. The source of truth also enables investigations, searchability, right? And the source of truth also enables things like predictive analysis, AI-based analysis of, and then being able to prevent and remediate.
How are you actually doing it then? How do you do it? How does it work?
So we pull data. The biggest difference between us and traditional insider risk solution is we focus on not just the malicious employees, but we focus on accidental and negligent mistakes by employees. And we create a source of truth for that data, which doesn't exist, associated with every employee. Like what mistakes is every employee making? That's really important to understand so that you can put the right guardrails in place as a security team. So that, if I put this guardrail in place, let's say application whitelisting in place, just as an example, there's many, then I can eliminate so much of risk, right? Because X number of my employees are making that mistake. So having that source of truth is our biggest differentiator. We don't look at insider risk as a use case by use case. Oh, let's do X, let's do Y, but more around collecting the right data and creating a source of truth. Once you have that, then we are able to cross-join, apply AI on top of it to basically predict insider mistakes, to basically aid investigation, reduce false positives. All of those become much, much easier.
Yeah, I think you're right. When you talk about insider risk, you do naturally think about bad employees. Are you finding that is there much of an education you're having to provide to folks when you're going to market with it?
Yeah, I mean, there is to some extent in certain industries, there is this preconceived notion of insider risk. And I'm not discounting that. That's an important aspect. Like, for example, when you're dealing with financial information, you want to be able to watch people who deal with money because they can commit fraud. It's a valid case. But if you're not dealing with money, then what is the risk that you're creating to the enterprise? And people are always, when you talk about insider risk, it's a taboo topic generally, right? Because people generally want to trust their employees because that's how you can make your business successful. You can't run a business and say, hey, I don't trust my employees. You'll never have a viable business, right? So people want to trust their employees. So what we are providing is, hey, let's give you a holistic view in a privacy preserving way, which is important, right? About what is your risk here, right? As an organization, so that then you can decide to take the right steps to put the right guardrails in place. And I think having that open conversation needs to happen in every single company, right? It's an issue that every single company faces. So it should not be a taboo topic. It should be published saying, hey, we monitor this type of data so that we can understand, we can protect the company. And the employees will actually help if you do it that way. So we want to flip the conversation and not make employees the bad people, right?
I've just read the stat, 74% of breaches are caused by humans.
Yeah.
Which is insane. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's it's a real statistic, right? I mean, that's over several years, right? And so this is published by Verizon DBIR, the Data Breach Investigation Report, which is one of the more widely followed ones. And they publish this every year. 2024, it was 68, which is why I quoted 68. 68 versus last year, it was 74. But it's been hovering around this area, around 2/3, right? And that's why we created Anzenna, is because this is how the breaches are happening. So I, as a practitioner, can deploy all this technology. I can have email security, I can have an endpoint, I can have this, I can have that, and people have it, right? We've advanced quite a bit, like I mentioned. But we don't understand how it relates to all this and how, importantly, it helps me reduce the 68% of my risk, which is what we are providing. So.
Love it. Such a fascinating topic. Let's talk about being a founder again. So second time round, talk about some of the lessons learned from the first time that you
Yeah, I mean, the biggest lesson is every time is the first time, right? What you want to look for as even as a second time, third time, fifth time founder is, are you just learning from your mistakes? Are you even aware of the mistakes you made previously? And can you apply it to the second one and learn, right? Because every time it's different. Because you're trying to solve a different problem. I'm in the same industry, but trying to solve a completely different problem, right? And so you just have to be cognizant. And it's just going through the grind, trusting the process, and basically making sure that you're taking quick decision making is important as a founder in a small company, because the cost to reverse a bad decision is much smaller than not making a decision at all. And so that's what I try to do. It's nothing rocket science.
Yeah. What about your founding team? How important has that been?
Oh, it's extraordinarily important. One is that's the most important thing in a company, right? Like, what kind of people are you working with? Do they gel with you? Do they gel with each other? And what do they bring to the table? Obviously, that's of course right. Needless to say.
What advice would you give to any prospect founders looking to start something now?
I think be prepared for the grind, because I think when we hear, like, a lot of times we hear, startup X went unicorn and startup Y got this and they got acquired Z. For every such report, there are 99 other companies, right? Thousands of other companies that are struggling, right? So startup is about going through the struggle and then not really just going for the outcome from day one. If you're just looking for an outcome, you'll fail as a founder because your goal changes. Your goal should be to solve a problem and you should want to do it, right? Mm-hmm. And you have to keep at it, go through the ups and downs. Starting a company goes like this, right? Yeah. So you have up days, down days, up days, down days, up days, down days. And a lot of times, as a founder, you think, why the hell am I doing this? Right? It's yet another day I have to grind through this. But that is the important part. If you're able to get through that, then you will see better days over time.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier about obsessing over your customers. Like, how important is that?
I think that it's needless to say, right? Like, if you're solving a problem, you're solving for the customer. So you want to have continuous conversations and be engaged with your customers. And get their feedback at all aspects as much as possible.
Mm. Well, in terms of the insider risk space, then, what do you think the future holds for this particular space?
I think the future is, sort of the broader aspect of looking at the problem, the lens. I think that changes. That needs to change, because insider risk is not just about bad employees. It's 1 to 5% of the problem. Yeah. It's a real problem, but you're ignoring the 95% if you just look at that lens. You have to look at what mistakes insiders are making to really solve that problem, right? And it needs to be solved because that contributes to 68% of the risk. So that's one thing. That's just a mindset change. In terms of, of course, there can be different approaches. Different companies can try to solve the problem differently. AI is going to play a part in this, like any other field, right? So when people come and talk to me about AI, every company is an AI company, right? Like we used to say, every company is a data company, every company is a software company, every company is going to be an AI company, right? So it's just needless to say that you must use AI where it makes sense, right? And the where it makes sense is important.
Yeah, absolutely. What's the future for Anzenna?
We make insider risk a first-class citizen and basically solve the biggest part of security risk that practitioners tell us day in and day out that, hey, like, I don't even know how to solve this from a technology standpoint. Like, what do I do here? I'm doing training, I'm doing this. So it's really to create, how do we make the insider risk, basically the going back to the crunchy outside and squishy inside. How do you make the inside more crunchy, right? Yeah. So that organizations are truly protected, because right now they're not. Right now they're deploying a bunch of technology and hoping that technology actually prevents breaches. There's no way to tie it back to ROI. There's no way to tie it back to actual breach data, right? And this is what practitioners are looking for. I've got 30 tools. Okay, so like, how is it actually helping me, right?
Yeah, love it. Ganesh, I wish you all the best of success.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Second acquisition incoming, hopefully.
Yeah. The biggest thing is to solve the problem for customers. So that'll happen in its due course. So
thank you for sharing that. It was really good.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to this very special BlackHat 2024 edition of CyberBytes, the podcast. If you did enjoy the show, please like, subscribe, and share with your colleagues and friends. If you're a candidate looking for a new role or a hiring manager looking for their next technical or go-to-market hire, then please reach out directly or via our company email, info@